coming to you from top of the 12th floor of Remax global headquarters here in Denver, Colorado. It's Adam Contos, CEO of Remax, with Start with a Win in studio with producer Mark. How you doing, buddy?
That's right, fist bumping distance.
Bam!
Right there.
Oh, you're both there.
We are both. Yeah, isn't that weird?
That was like one of those movies where they reach through and then the other guy's hand comes out on the other side.
Yeah, that's kind of funny.
Well, hey, let me introduce our guest to our audience here. Juliet Funt is the founder and CEO of the Juliet Funt Group, an efficiency training firm. Juliet and her firm are on a mission to de-crapify work, which don't we all want that? Helping business leaders and organizations unleash their full potential by unburdening the talent from busy work. She is renowned keynote speaker, a love advisor, tough love advisor. I love this. I want to hear more about tough love.
I wish I was a love advisor. It's more of a tough love advisor, but I'm going to write that down as a goal for the future. Yeah.
And then also an author. I mean, she's like the Renaissance woman, you know, a minute to think, reclaim creativity, conquer busyness, and do your best work. Juliet, welcome to the Start with a Win podcast.
That's me. Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah, we're so glad to have you here. I mean, and I love this theme here today, eliminating busyness. There's way too much of that in the world, and we all figured out a way to how to add more of it during COVID for some reason. Busyness and noise and
did we.
crap. So we need to de-crapify. I mean, talk about spot on. How'd you come up with that? What led you to go, I'm going to eliminate business and de-crapify your life? Bam. What got us there?
I spent 20 years in people buried in crap. So, I thought somebody should get this off of these lovely people. That it was about 10 years keynoting and consulting and about 10 years running the company where we do this systematically. And the amount of meetings, email, paperwork, decks, reports, and just low value junk that is sitting on top of most talented people while they try to do their day is completely unsustainable. And you said it, COVID just made it worse. So it's not a new problem, but it's a frightening time if we're ignoring it still. We are really checked out at this point.
Oh, totally. I mean, where are people going right now? I mean, it's, you talk about the what causes employees to transition to autopilot mode, things like that. I mean, there's a lot of autopilot. And I mean, I was just in a mastermind 2 weeks ago, and we talked about how people will generally only deliver the 25% that they need to, Tell us about this. How are they not making the most of their time at work, and what can we do about that?
In terms of moving toward most effective use of talent and time and energy, I think maybe we start with the foundational metaphor that is of the book, of our work, which is that of building a fire. And if you imagine that you're building a fire, you could have perfect dry, crumbly newspaper, and you could have all the right wood. But if you missed one critical ingredient, that fire would never, ever ignite. And that ingredient is space. It is the oxygenating room in between the logs and the stuff and the pine needles that makes those flames ignite. And human beings are the same. They need to have space, not only to recuperate, which is where people's minds go first, but they also have to have space to step back, to be strategic, to reflect, or to let an idea cook. And it is that crap that we were talking about is extinguishing the oxygenating space of the day. That's why it's tied so directly to the burnout that we're just seeing everywhere, because human beings need space. And so when you return that oxygenating space to work, wonderful things happen. People can have more creativity. They can have more engagement. They can take a strategic pause, is the terminology we use, and they can think purposefully about the next chapter of a project or of their business. And there's no time in history that I've ever seen where leaders especially more need to take a pause, have some space, and decide, what exactly do we want this next design to look like? We almost have a blank page. It's so thrilling. We could take decades of annoyance and extinguish it right now because of the redesign opportunity that COVID has been a catalyst for, but only if we take space to think about it.
Why did we lose that? Why did we default to that Where did it come from? Why are we in this situation? What do we need to do?
We have a number that we use in our practice called the million for 50 number. And that means that when you take corporate waste, and it could be in a bank, it could be for realtors, it could be anybody who works professionally. If you take that waste, we typically see about $1 million of waste in wasted talent time for every 50 people in an organization. That's the million for 50 annually number. That number is based on data that we've been collecting for over 10 years. So this is not a COVID phenomenon. This is the way that work has transpired for a very, very long time. And then COVID hits, we all lose our minds as we had no choice not to. But now that we're at this tail where people are designing what they're calling hybrid, what is a problem is that leadership is over focused on questions about where. There are questions about where should people sit and where should people work and where should we sell real estate and where should we keep real estate. And the where questions are logistic necessities that we need to get through. But the how is what's going to bring people together in the next decade of work. The how do we really want to communicate? How do we really want work to feel? How can we teach people to be more empowered? How can we give more autonomy that people have been craving and starving for so long? This is that design opportunity that I'm talking about, is for leaders to step back and really think through what are all the things that are suboptimal about the how of the way that we work and how can I fix them? Can I go, those meetings they call a skip level meeting where the big boss talks to the people below the next rung? How about skip levels meetings? Let's have the big boss talk to people 6 levels below and say, what is it like for you? Do you work at night after your children go to bed? Do you wake up every day and eat 3 espressos just to open your eyes? What is it like for you? And then change those hows. In order to insert space, the best way to do it for a solopreneur and entrepreneur is to begin with an interlaced approach as opposed to looking for a chunk. When people think, I need a little white space or I need a little thinking time, they tend to go for, I need a 30-minute block or I need an hour to just step back. It's not really realistic for most people to begin that way. What's more realistic is to think of a tool we call the wedge. And I'm glad we're on video. For those of you listening audio only, my fingers are up like a steeple. And I'm imagining a wedge of time that's inserted in between 2 of the activities of your day to uncompress them and add oxygen. So between a meeting and a meeting, between a question and answer, between an email that is emotional and your response, if you start inserting these little wedges, it can be 3, 5, 7, 12 seconds. And you can begin, you feel, there's that oxygenation is starting in the in-between moments of the day. So from that solo and entre perspective, I believe we start with the wedge and don't sabotage ourselves by trying to go for long stretches that feel impossible at the beginning.
So what does that wedge do for us mentally?
The kind of strategic pause that we teach, where we build in something called white space, is completely open time. And that means we follow thought. We have no instruction. We're not returning to breath. We can think about anything that we want in those times. And that's where that creative ideation gets really rich. I'll give you an example and then I'll come back to the rest of your question. There's a guy named John. He's a security guard at a Fortune 200 company that was a client of ours. And what's really funny is in this company where they pride themselves on a lot of innovative patents, John, the security guard, actually holds the record for having the most patents in the company over the people in the innovation department. And we sat together and we talked about why. I know he's a very unique thinker. He's a brilliant man. But I also believe it's because his job is 5% prescribed action and 95% waiting, white space, making sure that he's ready. So in that time, he thinks and he ideates and he plays with ideas, and no one is judging the validity of his thinking time because he's supposed to be sitting there waiting. So this time can be so valuable if we find ways to give it to ourselves just to let ideas flow. But there's more. There's the frontal lobe, which is the executive center of our brain, finally having time to reboot, because it can't reboot if it keeps going. And there's also our ability to get in touch with feelings or things that are cooking inside of us that could distract us all day long if we don't even have a minute to acknowledge them. So all sorts of wonderful things can happen in that space. So in the book, there's an origin story of white space, and it has a couple different compartments. There's part of the name came from looking at paper calendars of executives and looking for the white. And part of the idea came from when I was a young mom, when I first had my kids, we decided we would lie down with them to wait while they fell asleep because they wouldn't fall asleep any other way. And so in that time, I had 3 kids in a row, 2 years apart. It's 6 years of basically lying in dark rooms with no sensory stimuli of any kind for 20 to 30 minutes every night. And as a really high energy person, this was really hard at first. And then I realized that I would dash out of those rooms when whichever baby fell asleep looking for a pencil and a pad, because in the white space of the dark, there was this amazing creative flow that wasn't interrupted by cell phone, wasn't interrupted by distraction. And you've experienced the same thing. Most people do when they give themselves a chance to turn on that channel. And that's what's so beautiful about watching this come to life for people.
So, but I have a question for you. Your book, okay? A Minute to Think. Reclaim creativity, conquer busyness, and do your best work. Recently published this summer. Obviously this is a glimpse into that book. What else can we learn in that book, and what can we expect if we apply what's in that book?
Yes. The goal of the book was to do 2 things, was to first of all let people know that they were not alone in this experience of misery at work. And the second was to let them know that it is absolutely a solvable problem. For an individual, a team, or an organization, that there was a path that I wanted to create for people that was a directed, clear framework to walk out of one place and into another place. So in the book, you'll see that the sections of the book lead you to understand the problem, which is always necessary, and then adopt the tools and shared language that you need to reliably and permanently change the situations we've been describing.
Awesome. Great information. I encourage everybody to check out the book. Juliet, I have a question I ask everybody that's on the show, and I'm really excited to hear what you have to say about this because I love how you think. So, Juliet, how do you start your day with a win?
The introductory course to taking space, the baby step that everyone can do, is to insert a wedge between opening their eyes and getting out of bed. And that pausing right there at the beginning to say, how am I? What's coming up? What do I need to shake off from the night or the day before? And what do I want this day to look like? That is arguably the most important wedge of white space that you can take in your entire day. And I'd say that's one that I'm pretty reliably batting. Now I'm going to get myself into a sports analogy. I'm either batting 100 or 1,000. I don't know what the good one is, but I'm batting something very high on that one. So I would say beginning with thoughtfulness and not launching into activity too fast.
Awesome. You're batting 1,000 with that, Juliet.
That's the one.
There you go. Hey,
Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, Juliet Funt, author, keynote speaker, coach, trainer, consultant. I mean, just a really smart person. You need to listen to what she's saying because this matters a ton, and just a fantastic human being. So, Juliet, thank you for being on Start With a Win.
Thanks. Great to be here.
If you're ready to create personal and business success, subscribe to this podcast and head over to wherever you get your books and order Start With a Win, the book. Thanks again for listening, and for more great content, head over to startwithawin.com. And until next time, start with a win.
That new music is catchy, Mark.
Oh, yeah. It's got a nice little, just makes you want to smile.
It does. It does.
It's good morning music.
That is.
There you go.
Get you out of your bed and get you ready for the day. So, but hey, I have a question because we never really talked about your tough love advisor, skills. What exactly is that about?
That's about that there needs to be someone external and objective to take a C-suite lovingly by the shoulders and say, wake up. Wake up to the things that people are hurting from in your organization. And usually that has to be someone who has a little bit of sparkle from the outside. If you've been the speaker or if you're an author, it helps them be humble enough to learn from you, but also you have to deeply empathize with them, that they are by and large really earnest people trying to balance a very difficult seesaw of, especially if it's a public company, responsibility to shareholders, caring about humans. That is not an easy dichotomy to balance. And so sometimes just having a loving ear of a smart person who's does not get a paycheck from that company can help them find a place to talk and also listen in a different way.
That's nice. That's interesting. Adam, I don't know if you're like this, but a lot of times I have so many things going on in my brain that sometimes I need to listen to other podcasts or audiobooks or, something else to kind of distract my brain in order for, like, say, to fall asleep even. Like, a lot of times I'll listen to something that kind of drones on so I can fall asleep. But then listening to you speak, I'm like, maybe I shouldn't have those things on because it's distracting my brain from thinking, but then it's also distracting my brain from, fretting about a meeting or something else I have going. So what's the balance there?
So the balance is that we want to break the habit of grouting in all the open spaces in the day. And these things, which I only use for podcasts because of feedback, this is a number one problem is we've gotten to the point now where the AirPods, if I have to make an egg for my child in the morning, well, that's 3 minutes. I can listen to 3 minutes of a podcast. We pop them in and we pop them out. And we're creating this interstitial grouting in of every second where our brains would be at liberty. And so there needs to be just some balance. I'm obviously not anti-podcast and not anti-audiobook and all those things that I love. But then there have to be times where you get a little whisper from deep inside your mind that says, I want to talk. The brain wants to say, I'm thinking about something. I'm worried about something. I'm on the edge of a breakthrough. I'm not present and I don't even know why. So I have to spend some time kind of being an investigator of my own internal life and saying, what is it that's bothering me? Because I am off and I'm snapping and I don't even know why. None of those things can occur in a parallel channel while the AirPods are in and the podcast is on. So to me, it's about taking turns. So some mornings when I'm curling my hair, I'll listen to an audiobook, and some mornings I just force myself to have that quiet. And as long as you're mindful, you can create a balance that works for you.
Well, hey, thank you so much for being on Start With a Win. Where's the best place for people to connect with you and, find more about what you're doing?
Sure. JulietFunt.com. They can go there, and they and their whole teams, even if they don't buy the book, we hope you do, but even if they don't, they can take something called the Busyness Test, and it will give them a unique, tailored view of their own busyness, why it's happening, and what they can do about it to make things lighter and more effective.
Cool.
That's great.
I'm in.
I'm in too.
All right. Well, thanks, Juliet.
Awesome.
Yep.
Thanks,
so
guys.
much. All right.
Great to be with you.
Great to see you. Take care.
We'll see you.